maybe
then.
just in the
Just mention it.
interest
Yeah.
of openness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you speak on behalf of both of you, would I ask for, yeah.
So that's a non-pecuniary interest, is it?
Yeah, it's just something parallel.
Registrable.
Could be registerable. That may be a difference, but, Good evening, everybody. Are we ready to go? No, we're not ready to go. Right, 7 o'clock. It's thanks for joining us tonight. This is the meeting of Frome Town Council's Oversight Committee. Mark Dorrington, I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Welcome to the first one of the year. We've got people online and here in the room. You all know by now where the emergency exit is over there. Lou's down at the end. T's over there. Tonight, Rachel will be clerking. So welcome, Rachel, as a clerk. Laura, Beck and Lucy will be handling all the technical stuff and the minutes. And we'll be recording the meeting and posting on our YouTube channel. I was going to say for councillors attending via Zoom, but I think for the first time ever, everyone's in the room. It's good to see you all. So I was going to ask for apologies for absence, but I think everybody's here, aren't they?
Everybody's here?
Which is great. Got a very packed agenda tonight, so if we can keep, I mean, this meeting allows plenty of discussion, but if something's been said, you don't have to say it again, so let's try and get through this. Don't have to. Yeah. Something about empty vessels and most noise. Do we have any declarations of council's interest? Andy?
Yeah, myself and Anne Hills are both directors of SALC. We're not part of the decision-making on grants, but just in the interest of openness.
And that's particularly relevant to topic 3.
Topic 3, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's noted, but I don't think we need to leave the room or anything like that, so that's great. Anybody else got any interest? No, thank you. In that case, we move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 11th of December. Does anybody have any comments to make on those or any actions they took forward? No, in that case, can I ask someone to propose we accept those minutes? Thank you, Steve. Seconded by Fiona. Vote. Mel's put his hand up, so yeah.
And we're off. That's unanimous.
Unanimous, great. Starts with me to be on. Okay, then we move on to topic 3, which is to approve a grant application of £35,000 to SALC Health and Wellbeing Fund.
Questions and comments?
Oh, anybody got any questions or comments? Sorry. I know I was trying to move on a bit. Yeah.
You have one.
Does anybody have any questions or comments, which isn't going to be in the rest of the agenda? We don't have any members of the public here. Is anybody online? No. Thank you. Right, deja vu all over again. Item 3, and that falls to Nikki.
Yeah, can I just mention that when in the proposal I said that it was coming to it came to council in December, it was actually oversight.
Okay, thank you.
For
Noted.
clarity. I'm literally going to pass over to Tom.
We met you before, but if you can introduce yourself, especially for those online.
Yes, of course. Am I okay here? Do you want me to?
Wherever you're comfortable.
Okay, great. For anyone who doesn't know me, either in the room or online, yes, my name's Tom Spencer. I'm the director of Terrestrial, a local community arts organisation. It was a pleasure just last month to come and chat to Oversight and feed back on a whole bunch of work that we've done here in Frome across the last year. And I'm here today to talk about something that I think could be really exciting for the next year or so ahead. This comes out of a conversation that Nikki and I have been having with sort of Photo at SALC and trying to understand the kind of landscape and being very aware of the fact that that money, which for anyone who's not aware, there's a sort of community health and well-being grant that's available, is for projects that have to be concluded by April 2026. And given that the idea is that these support ambitious long-term projects, that means it's getting quite tight to sort of get stuff in, but it's been made really clear that this grant has been under-applied for. and they're sort of desperate for this money to be spent and to be doing good stuff. So here's a proposal for some good stuff. FTC has worked with Terrestrial on a range of stuff recently. You might be aware of the things we did here at the town hall. Oh yes, I'll take a clicker, thank you. I love the power. But you might not know about our sort of the background to our work, which is in more what we call co-created projects, so work that's made over a long time with partners. So here in Frome at the moment, for example, we're doing a project with the women's football team, where now every week before their training, there is a Venezuelan dance artist leading their warm-up. So there is a group of young women who have never had any experience of performance or dance, who are not only developing their football skills by working together, they're also being exposed to a really radical form of art making, and it's having a really profound effect on their camaraderie, on their confidence, on those kinds of things. And that is the type of sort of behind the scenes work that we do, as well as coming and painting on the ceiling in the town hall. So I'll give you a couple of examples in a moment, but in a nutshell, what we're proposing is adventures in your neighborhood. And this is a sort of program of what we're calling community festivals. So it's about shining a spotlight on a particular area of Frome for a period of time, where we are bringing in those little sprinklings of magic, those wonderful visiting artists, whether that be composers, choreographers, filmmakers, to really amplify the brilliant local stories that are there. Let's click. There we go. So what we're imagining is in each of 4 or 5 neighborhoods over the course of about 9 months, there'll be a little window where one area of town, and we're talking micro-local, a little cluster of streets, becomes the heart of Frome's cultural epicenter for that moment. And we're really shining a spotlight on what's there. We're imagining in the summer, this might be in the kind of wonderful outdoor spaces, some of which are newly under FTC's control. Indoors in the winter, perhaps environments like the Key Centre, if that becomes a reality, using Badgers Hill, really trying to make the most of these venues that are in transition anyway. Now, there's often talk in these things about infrastructure, about let's build a thing or do a thing. Well, we're in the business of making memories. So this is about those kind of intangible moments where communities come together. We do a lot of work in schools, but we're also talking about neighborhood groups, clubs, volunteer groups, any way of accessing communities of people who don't normally feel invited to get involved in the town's kind of cultural life. We've got a strong track record of running those kind of targeted workshops, as well as special events, which are the sort of more flashy things you might see on our website. And then across that whole program and how that's sort of brought together is we're imagining then we're really telling the story of that. So when you're learning about what's happening in Frome, sat alongside the independent market and those big major events, we're saying, hey, everyone is heading to this street this weekend. And it's more than a street party, it's that absolute celebration of what makes that place so special. There'll be a calendar of regular events so that those things start to blend into one another and say, I got involved because this happened in the hall at the end of my road. But now that I am involved, I can go down and I can take part in those other brilliant things in the town. And then, as I think we all agree, every time we speak to the town, there is a real drive for sort of young people's well-being, being the kind of heart of our engagement work. We have an existing relationship with multiple schools. We'd like to use this project to sort of move that age range upwards. We have a really good relationship with first schools, a growing relationship with the middle schools. We'd like to use this as a way to have more of a relationship with the college, the youth clubs, YMCA, all these different environments where young people gather. And then lastly on that point, a lot of the artists in this town don't really work very much in Frome. You can't move around this town without bumping into someone who would describe themselves as an artist, but most of their work is sold online, visited elsewhere. Very little of that employment happens within the town. So we'd be providing this year-long opportunity for Frome's artists to get paid to work in the town delivering community activity. Is that going to go? There we go, that's fine. I just wanted to draw attention with how this would fit in with Frome Town Council's kind of ongoing work, and this is something that Nikki and I have been working on together, and how it aligns with some of that existing asset-based community work. some of the small local areas where, the officers are working to do that engagement work, particularly around green spaces and play, and how that's part of the strategy, and how some of the recommendations for the review of that play strategy, they move exactly in this direction. Co-creation for us is about ownership, and I can show you a couple of examples of that. And then just to nod to the fact that I think there's a real room within this project to highlight the kind of small-scale climate calculations that we could do along the way of that. So we start to learn, okay, well, when we bring people from the town to this neighborhood, this is what happens. This number of people need to drive, whereas this number of people can cycle. What does it mean to put this event on in Badgers Hill in the cold in the winter versus doing it in the summer? So we can start to have that really micro level of detail of saying, well, we all love these community events, and what is the climate cost of doing them in these different ways? These are some examples of places that we have begun to have this talk about. There's this little cluster of areas around Badgers Hill and the football club. There's the St John's Road small play area. There's that sort of Stonebridge green corridor that I just think of as the patch behind the Tesco up there. That feels like this really rich environment where you could run a whole series of cluster events, perhaps using a space in the football club as a hub throughout them. And then on the other side of the town, yes, the opportunities at the Key Centre, and I suppose I'm just saying this as an example of the kind of places. In this application, we wouldn't be naming hard and fast exactly where we were doing things. We would be giving an indication, and then we'd be wanting suggestions from councillors, local organisations about where those actual projects land. But these were some examples. Put Waylands on there because we've got a really good relationship with Vallis School, so that might be a nice way to kind of support that. Edmund Park a little bit separate from those places, but another perfect environment where you could really pop up and celebrate for a few weeks. And then just very quickly, because this is the kind of work that hasn't happened so much in the public view, to give a sense that I'm not just throwing this out there and show we have a track record in this, I wanted to tell you about a project we did just outside Weston-super-Mare in an area called Whirl, where we met with a group of elderly people who told us that the coffee morning that they went to at Big Whirl was the only time they left the house all week. And when we spoke to them at the beginning, the quote from a lovely woman called Jean just said, "We're sort of in the background. They don't listen to us. We're not here." And when we asked them whether they'd like to make a project with us, the sort of responses we got were, "Why? We don't have anything to say," And we worked with those people for 18 months, and we made oral histories with them. And then we formed a community choir, and we turned their own words into a set of choral songs. We made a documentary with each of them, which was then staged in the town museum with them as our guests of honor, completely sold out for multiple nights, with a whole choir live accompanying it. And at the end of that, I won't read all of these, but you can see, and I was saying that, we wouldn't have said that in a coffee morning. What we told you folk, we probably wouldn't have dreamt of telling anybody, but as it came out in the film, it just flowed, so everybody felt all right. And then my favorite thing, it felt very special. We felt very special. So across 18 months of making a film project, we went from we're not here to we felt really special. And that, I suppose, is what happens when you can really lean into the power of the arts on a really super local level. This is an example. We worked with a local cafe, brilliant local chef in Love's Cafe, who was much beloved by the town, but really struggled with confidence of putting on community events. So we welcomed people to come into the cafe and learn from her about how she cooks her menu, and then we turned it into a community feast. And about 300 people came over on the day and shared a meal together. And again, I can circulate this rather than reading all the quotes, but so you see, it can work with business, it can work with individuals, it can work with community partners. And the last one, when we first moved to Frome, we did a project out in East Woodlands with Purple Elephant, where we asked people, why was this beautiful green space so close to the town not used? And we realized that actually it's completely impossible to get there without transport. So we paid for a minibus to drive around town 8 times every day and pick people up. And 300 families came out and played in the woods. And that was just another approach to working very locally. And when we asked Purple Elephant to ask their families how they'd felt while they were at that weekend, and this is what I hang on to, they said somewhere between part of the family and an honoured guest. And I think that that's what we're all trying to do when we're doing community engagement. And that's how we'd like people to feel in each of these neighbourhoods when the festival comes to their neck of the woods. That's it. That's what I think the town hall should always look like, of people climbing out windows. So just to say that we can apply for, or rather, Frome Town Council can apply for up to £35,000. As you might remember, anyone who spoke in December, the last time Frome Town Council gave us money, we were able to bring in a further £60,000 of money from the Arts Council and Somerset Community Foundation. So while I can't guarantee anything, I would feel really confident that if you approve this as a grant and we get that money, that would be brilliant match funding for us to return to the Arts Council. And so the potential benefit for Frome, I would say, is upward of £100,000. And I can very happily come and share more about that once we have the next stage of that process. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Tom. Anne?
Have you had the pre-application conversation with FODO? Yes. And how did that conversation go?
Very well, else we wouldn't be here.
Yes, we had a conversation with FODO, who manages this grant at SALC. It was a really positive conversation. We were trying to understand exactly what was and wasn't eligible. Arts and culture is so intrinsically linked to community health and well-being, and that was made really clear that that would be looked upon favourably. And we explained some of the kinds of projects that Terrestrial have done here and elsewhere, and that felt like that was exactly the kind of evidence that they'd be looking for to make a strong application.
I think a brilliant idea. Obviously, I mean, it's young people, creativity, communities, engagement, all, yeah, brilliant. What though, so are we as Frome Town Council won't be offering any match funding, is that correct? So this is just to get this amount. Would we include any match funding on our part in it? I think Nikki wants.
So we'll make the application to SALC for 35. We'll probably go for the big whack. Then there will be something that Frome Town Council need to contribute, but that will depend on how much we receive. I've got another meeting with FODO on Monday. If it is,
So would that be like cash, or would that be in terms of staff time?
it might be staff time, it might be space. So not necessarily money, but even if it was money, we have got pockets of money that are allocated to children and young people's voice.
And have you thought about, in terms of, because we've got the event report coming up and that gives us sort of an idea of the staff time in terms of days for each of the events. I'm just wondering whether you've done in terms of your team's time, but also the comms team as well. Well, thinking what this would involve.
Rachel's coming in to help write the bid, and yeah, we would be commissioning work, so it wouldn't necessarily be staff time.
But there would be staff time involved in writing the bid and then in the comms around the events, and sort of there is. I'm just wondering whether you have any idea of like what we're talking about in terms of staff days.
It's not a massive funding application. It's 3,000 words.
And then delivery. Do you have any idea in terms of like sort of comms, the sort of all the size of what it's going to take? I mean, I'm saying roughly, but
it was only just to say that I think the way that we're envisaging this is that these events would be, it was essentially be a commission from Frome Town Council for Terrestrial to run the events. We would be running the comms, we'd be running the communications, we'd be staffing it, we'd be managing it in partnership with the Town Council, as we have often done with previous events, but it wouldn't be requiring council staff to be creating that material. It would be about resharing and boosting the work that we're creating, and we would be using that budget to pay our team in order to do that work, if that's helpful as a...
Yes, that is. So I will say there will still be work for the comms team, but I see it will be less because it's coming initially from you. Okay.
Yeah, and if it's helpful to sort of compare that to previous work that we've done when we've done events here, the current work we're doing in the library, the multiple different ways that we've collaborated together, I couldn't say exactly how much that has asked of the brilliant team here, but I hope not too much.
And with regard to further grants, would Terrestrial be applying for those on our behalf, or do we have to apply for those?
No, so that would be terrestrial applying. Essentially, we would take any amount of that money that Frome Town Council received, any amount of that was given to us as a commission, we would then use as match funding to the Arts Council. The Arts Council generally ask for a minimum of 10% match funding. We normally go with about 20 or 25. So sort of upscale that, and that's where I feel like a grant of somewhere in the sort of 80 to 100,000 pound region, they're incredibly competitive. SALC have made clear that they try to not have too many applications, so that once you've reached the stage of applying, you've got a reasonably good chance. The Arts Council is not so guaranteed, but we have a 100% track record of being funded.
Nick, then Anne.
Another one there. Oh, here we got through. Thank you very much. Hi, Tom. Great presentation. Thanks very much. Really interesting. Just reading up on the grant application process, the £35,000 large grant says it's for collaborative projects involving multiple councils. Are they now desperate to give out the money so they're not involved in multiple? Okay, thank you.
And my point is not really a question, it's just a point of information. This grant is our one shot. It's not like we can apply for 35,000 and then 2 months down the line think of another project. So this is our one shot, and it's likely to be the one shot for this area of Somerset. And that's probably why it says in the grant application, collaborate, because they think of it as, we'll give £35,000 to that area of Somerset and we'll try and spread these major grants out across Somerset, but nothing's happened in this area yet from the SALC grant. So,
with one of my other hats on, can I ask, as this project moves forward, you talk to the neighbourhood networks team, because we're really keen on building those sort of micro neighbourhood groups that then become a legacy that moves forward.
Absolutely.
Can I say one more point? Just as sort of a bit of a steer going forward, I'm particularly interested in sort of events that then feed into sort of our goals and our aims and our work programme going forward. I think particularly around the new open spaces, I can see that is incredibly helpful for us, and around the key centre, etc. So I think as a bit of a sort of a steer or guide, like really sort of feeding into the other work and the other things that we're trying to achieve would be incredibly helpful going forward.
Thank you. I have one comment and then we'll go to the vote. I know Nikki's particularly interested in children and young people, and the work you've done so far is here, but I was interested in the work you've done with older people, and they are often less represented in the town. Can we look at projects for older people as well?
Yes, absolutely. I gave that because I think it sort of sits in contrast to some of the work we've done locally here, which has been commissioned specifically to work with young people. What we call co-creation, we mean inviting artists and creative practitioners to form a long-standing relationship with a particular community group. Work with young people tends to make nice splashes on websites, but actually some of the most profound work that we've done has been with working age adults, people who've experienced substance misuse, isolated older people, gardening groups, volunteer refugee families. So we would in each neighbourhood be working with partners like yourselves and other local charities to work out who are the people in this place that would make the right partners for this neighbourhood. And I imagine that'd be different in every place, but there's nothing I love more than those kinds of projects where you can have a profound impact on a small number of older adults.
Thank you, Tom. If there are no further questions, we'll go to the recommendations. Are they going to go up? There we go. We'll take them together. Approve the application and delegate authority to the partnership lead to submit the bid. So Nick is proposing that. Steve is seconding. Vote. Anybody against or abstaining?
That's
Unanimous.
unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Number 4. No, thank you, Tom. Number 4 is this very comprehensive handout from Rob with pictures and videos and cartoons by Disney, which Rob will present from a reclining position due to his impairment. I hope everybody's had a good look at this. Rob will go through it, and then at the end we'll be asked to make a decision on which way we want to go with regard to fighting the weeds in our town. But over to Rob.
Thanks very much. Just as a segue from the previous piece, if Tom thought the ideal for Frome Town Hall was people jumping out the windows, you've come to the perfect presentation for that. I will work on the basis that you've read the report, so I'm going to keep it short and snappy as we go through the 4 options, with a view to getting to the last bit, which is the comparison of all 4. But I will go through those 4 so that when we get there, it's live in our minds. Do feel free to ask questions as we go, although the main discussion, as I say, will happen at the end. So you've all read the report. There's 4 options. Continue as we are, herbicide, this interesting device called foam stream, and then the street cleaner. So we're going to go through all 4. So continuing as we are, we use this, I say we, Mike brilliantly uses the powered pedestrian device you can see bottom left there, and consistently makes a huge impact wherever he goes. The challenge isn't can we make an impact, because we do. And when this post came along not very long ago, that was the aim. One of the aims was to make a big difference, and we're doing that. The problem isn't that. The problem is that the weeds regrow, and they regrow quickly, because what you're doing here is basically cutting the grass in your lawn, and it regrows with vigor. So we have tried our hardest. Mike has tried his hardest, and what we have found is that, it's just not sustainable, because it just comes back. So I was asked by the town centre committee to look at options for managing weeds, but obviously one of them is carrying on as we are. The downsides is the amount of time it takes, the fact that weeds remain, the damage is still done, and it remains unsightly, so not really viable. If we did continue as we are, we'd want the clear up, which is about 5 times as long as the removal of the weeds, to be enhanced, ideally with a pedestrian sweeper like that, which isn't very expensive. But the bottom line here is, apart from the fact that the weeds regrow, it takes about 1/4 of Mike's time. So that's a huge amount of his time for something that isn't sustainable. So that led us to the very contentious question of, what about using herbicide? Some councils, Brighton and Hove Council, clearly a high-profile example, have reconsidered their ban. They went for a ban the same time as us. Legislation has changed. It is no longer banned in the US. It is no longer banned in Europe, and they are going down the route right now. January, so 1 year ago, they started using herbicide. So it's an option that's out there. They're obviously a very green council, and yet they've gone this route. And the reason is because it's very contentious, obviously, but it is also very effective and very cheap. So I've done the calculations. One of these cartridges, 750, that will get you 1,400 meters of a 1.2 meter wide spray. So you can basically do the whole town in 6 cartridges with one of these lances. So okay, it's cost effective, and it does work. But what are the downsides? Well, it completely doesn't support the FTC policy banning herbicides and tackling the nature crisis. So it would be, in the eyes of many, a retrograde step compared to decisions of principle that the council has taken. There's a risk to wildlife if you do this and it rains within 24 hours. There's risk to health, which is why you have to wear this PPE. Some say masks as well. Obviously, everybody knows the developer has quite a reputation, so that would be very contentious to use that. And the idea that even if you did it in the knows, the developer has quite a reputation, that would be very contentious to use that. That is very strange. It was me.
Second.
Sorry, it's me trying to prepare for the videos.
Oh, right. I can see how off-putting it is to hear me now. The idea of someone in the town centre spraying, that is going to have a very high public profile if that were done. So, put that, is that working now? Oh, it's not working. So, oh, I have to ad lib now. I'm going to mime a street sweeper any minute now.
Fiona does a really good impersonation of street sweeper, so if it doesn't work.
There we go. What do we need the slides for? Right. I don't know that this works. Maybe you could just press the next slide. Or is there a way of making this work again?
Here's the slide behind.
Sorry? Of your... Oh, yeah, I mean, if I have to, yeah, absolutely.
I think I need to click.
If you can just click through.
No, carry on.
Oh, very good. We're there. Okay, so we've covered the pros and cons. It's speed and price, and it's effective, but very big downsides. But there's an option. There's the price. Very little people time. Very little. So moving on. Right, foam stream. If the brief was to find an environmentally sustainable option that effectively removes weeds, this is quite something because this actually works. We actually had a demonstration. See if you can spot the councillor in the photo. But no, thank you to those that came to that. We trialled this. Is a very short video. Oh dear, it doesn't like that, does it? Anyway, but you can see what's involved. The foam only lasts for half an hour. It's not slippery. It's produced by potato starch. And the key, we'll move on from that, is that here, oh, the line's moved. But you can see that most of that is dead, and that's foam streams effectiveness, even on the big clumps. And then right at the bottom, it's green where they didn't do. Long story short, it does kill the weeds in an environmentally friendly way. So big tick, we've got credit where credit's due. The challenge is that it's expensive, it's heavy, so you need a vehicle. You could argue the vehicle could have multiple uses, which it could if we bought a forklift truck to be able to move it on and off, which is possible. You still have the dead vegetation which needs to be removed, so we'd need to get that machine as well up there. And it's not going to be used very often. You'd only need to do 3 passes a year, so that we're going to spend a lot of money and it's going to not be used very much. All of which doesn't change the fact it's effective. So, it's an option. And I've costed out how much it would cost for the cost of ownership as well as the purchase price, and worked out the people time, which is significantly less than Mike spends at the moment. So that's a positive. And then we come on to the street sweeper. The idea here is that if you do the thing of cutting the lawn, but you cut the lawn every 2 weeks, the grass never regrows, you don't get the green leaves which do the photosynthesis that pass the nutrients down to the weeds, and in time the weeds die. So that will happen if you do it frequently enough. And the problem at the moment is we can't do it frequently enough. The advantage of this system is that we will be able to do it frequently enough to hit them before the roots get the nourishment they need. So the advantage of this vehicle is that it's small enough to go down narrow streets. It's articulated so it can turn in very short circles. It's got multiple attachments, which I'll come back to, but the one on the right is the it's the beast that will chomp anything, and then the one on the left sweeps up anything, and those arms are articulated. They go out and come back in. So it does the job. It also can cope with the cobbles. The cobbles were still there afterwards, and it managed to go up and down. So it's coping with, the character of Frome. Oh, and then we'll see if these videos work. But this is just it in action. Oh dear, it's like something out of Charlie Chaplin, isn't it? And then the one on the right is you're just seeing it clear up the weeds. I'm going to go on to the next one, which is the before and after. So you just saw it doing the picture on the right. That's how it was at the start, and that's how it was at the end. So I think we can say it's effective for Frome streets. It copes with the slopes, it copes with the cobbles, it copes with the weeds. It also has these two attachments, which if your role is clearing up the town centre, these are invaluable. That's a really high-powered hoover wherever you go with this vehicle, and that's a high-powered pressure washer wherever you go. If you're cleaning up on let's say a Sunday morning or a Monday morning, you want that pressure washer. So really practical. We've thought through how this would work. It only goes at 13 miles an hour. We do not want to be driving far. We think this is the perfect vehicle for a town centre. We do not think it's good for going out to other places. Its focus, if it's the town centre, will work. It's going to be really difficult moving it anywhere else other than the surrounding green estate. So how do you cope with emptying the hopper, which would need to be emptied fairly regularly? So we think the best option would be the Cheese and Grain car park, where we already have a container for the independent market, and next to that there would be space for a skip, if people are very accommodating. And we've started the conversation with Somerset to get permission for that. So we think we can make it work practically, is the bottom line. Unlike the foam stream, we think this would be used a lot. You can use it for all sorts of attachments. A major element of the green works in the autumn winter is hedge cutting. It's all done manually at the moment. This would really make a big difference to how we could do that. So these would be extra to the money that's in the pot already, but a few thousand would enable more use to be made of the vehicle. So it has potential, unlike the foam stream. Just to say very quickly, we've had a testimonial. This is from the City of London, who look after Westminster, and basically ideal for town centre work. It copes with streets that are steep. Very good after-sale service. They come out within a day. We were talking to them, and maybe we're slightly further away from where they're based, maybe in 48 hours. But that, by contrast with our G4, with our Bradshaw electrical vehicles, it's often a week before we get them out. So, good after-sales service. We have considered alternatives. There's two of them up there. This wasn't in the report, but I did add it here. The Karcher, that was our first look actually, but that is 8,000 more. That would also do the job. That would be a great vehicle. But the Hayco City Master, which is the other one, is just too large. It won't work with the streets. It won't store in Mike's container. I won't do those videos. And then the cost. So it's more expensive than the foam stream, but only by 10,000. I say only, but compared to 53, it's not a big leap to 64, and it's all about the cost benefit. There are some running costs. The skip is going to cost us some money, and then those servicing visits and the brushes. You're going to use brushes, we think, four loads of brushes each year. So that's an attempt to look at the total cost, the purchase and the running costs. And the people time. It's a little bit more than foam stream, but look at that. That's half what Mike's doing now. And for that half, you get streets that are cleaned every fortnight and weeds that are effectively removed. So that's the nature of the discussion, and it can be used for other things in the green estate. So funding, just to say that in the already approved budget, there is 25,000 for negotiating a premium service for street cleansing. So this could be in discussion with some of the councillors already, the suggestion is that, providing it's voted on and approved, that would be a suitable use for that money. So that's in the mix. And the other thing is, there is still money in the Saxon Vale pot. I promise you. I have asked for confirmation. There is, I promise, this isn't invented. Saxon Vale's been in the news recently. It wouldn't be great if Saxon Vale's legacy was also in our existing town centre, potentially. Maybe that's, anyway. Here we go. This is where it's over to you guys. The summary of the all four options. Obviously, the street sweeper is more expensive, but you get the benefit. Is the benefit worth the cost? And that's over to you guys. Or any questions, I should say.
I have a question or a thing to think about. With the two expensive machines, is there any scope for hiring it out to other councils, maybe in the local area or other towns in the Mendip area?
Sure.
When we're not using it.
It's a very good question, Anne, and I think it's only going to be a question that is asked more and more as we grow our capacity and our capability. So it's a very good question. I don't think with this there is any scope for that at all, because it's such a small vehicle, perfect for the narrow, windy streets, but I think its capacity will be stretched. Also, the practicality of getting it anywhere, you'd have to buy a flatbed trailer, that would cost money, that would have to be stored somewhere. Getting it from A to B would be a big effort. If you have critical mass and you have a fleet of street sweepers, you can start to think of doing that. But I don't think with our one tiny dedicated street sweeper would be wise to contemplate it, would be my suggestion.
I'm just a bit sensitive that this seems very focused on the town centre, which is why you're saying the foam stream would be unused most of the time.
Yeah.
Because actually, we've got a town-wide problem with weeds.
Yeah.
And I can see no reason why we wouldn't run the foam stream out further and further in ever increasing radii to make a big impression town-wide. So, to say it's unused most of the time to me doesn't feel like a negative. Equally, I'm a bit on the same argument, the CR2260. You're focusing very much on a town centre problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't move very fast. It doesn't move very far. So, I know it's not strictly our liability for street cleansing anywhere.
Yeah.
But this town's a hell of a mess all over the place.
It's a very, again, it's another very good point and point well made. The challenge with taking on remit that isn't ours is capacity. The town centre was a focus that was, we voted it as a council to give the town centre a focus. And at the moment, we're not delivering on one of the main aims, and this would allow us to do that. The problem with taking on the remit of the whole town is I don't think this is the right vehicle for the whole town. This is the right vehicle for a very small, windy area. You'd want a bigger vehicle, bigger capacity, a storage area for that vehicle, and you'd be talking, I don't know exactly, but you'd be talking six figures for the next size up. And you'd probably want three of them. So, and you'd want a couple of people. I think what you're talking about is scale. And that little vehicle cannot cope with doing the whole of Frome. It just can't. I think it's important to set that expectation.
Thanks, Rob. How long do we think the CR2260 will last? And what's the warranty on it?
Sorry, I should have put street sweeper, shouldn't I? It's just the easier to get it on the. The warranty. I will actually double check that. I think it's a year. I know it's a year. It's whether it's more than a year. How long will it last? I think the record that the company have with their service, they'd service it 4 times a year for that money that we've put in the bot. And I think it would be, and also we benefit from having a really practical team who will take care of it. I think this will, there may be things that break over time, of course, but I would, the anticipation is I'm going to say minimum 10 years. But I can look into that further, Steve, to confirm. But that is the impression that I've been given, that these are very reliable if they're well maintained.
Repeat what Rob said, but I just want to say I definitely agree with what you're saying about town centre only. Like, that's the commitment that we've made now, and we haven't got that sorted yet. So let's sort that out and not, set that expectation too high. No to herbicide, just going to put it out there. It's a complete step backwards. And also, as an allotment holder, if we start using it, plot holders can use it, and that has knock-on impacts as well. And I'm not giving money to Monsanto. I think everyone knows I really like the street sweeper. I've got very excited by it. I know that's not a reason to spend some amount of money, but I do think it's very cool. And I do think that for me, the selling point here is that it can be used in lots of different ways. And I think that, especially given with devolution, improving the estate, increasing thing, a little machine like this, it can do a lot. I think it's just really valuable, and I think it's a great option. And brilliant report, really well researched. So thank you.
Okay, I'll echo that. Well done, Robert. Considering you can't walk around, this is a really good report, and as thorough as any that we've seen for a while. Having seen the CR 2260, I was equally impressed, but perhaps not quite as excited as Fiona. And it's in multiple uses, and I wonder over a period of time whether we'll stretch out a little further into difficult streets or paths along grassed areas that we own, but we just need to suck it and see. And God knows, Mark, we've been trying to get something like this for a decade, and we finally got to the point where research has been done. We're close to making a decision. We've got the money. We want to do things in the town centre. It's one of our priorities. I can't see any reason why we wouldn't vote yes to this.
Okay, any more comments or questions? I'm with you, Andy. I agree that we should be looking at the town as a whole, because we've got ratepayers all over the town. And I've raised this with Rob already when we were discussing the ins and outs of this. But at the moment, we've only got the capacity to do the town centre. When we renegotiate our contract with whoever's going to look after our streets in the next year or so, then I think we're going to have to look at what they're going to do about weeds as well, as they're part of their contract. But we'll do this and see how it goes. And I would like to see it extended as well, because my ward, Mel's ward, isn't only the town centre. Trinity is actually covered in weeds, and I get a lot of complaints about that as well. So the recommendations are that we buy this thing and fund it from the various places. Does anybody want to speak in favour of any of the other options?
No, I'm just going to say it comes with a 2-year warranty. I've just found out.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's we've got a 2-year warranty. I mean, Rob and I have been speaking to the dealers. Rob's done the due diligence on the aftercare with other people, and it all reads well. So, as we know, the proof is in. They will come out and service it regularly, so hopefully it'll be okay. Does anybody want to say leave things as they are, or use glyphosate again, or do the foamy thing? And I've been to all these demos, and so I know what it's like.
Can I just add a further request that Rob researches the cost benefit of some of those add-ons, like looking after the hedges, because it may be that we need to get ahead of the growth curve on that and be ready to say, actually, if by investing this much money we can get our rangers to be this much more effective, there may be an option to go down that way.
And as you were saying, the vehicle doesn't get around that quickly. But the hedges aren't all in the town centre, so we're going to have to get them up to the park or things like that. So we may have to look at a flatbed trailer to put behind a Hilux or something to move the thing around.
Yeah, I think step one is the town centre, and I think it would probably be a compelling case to maybe, in due course, when we have a depot to store it, get a flatbed trailer, move it around the green estate, and we'll get more experience of doing things. And then who knows? The next question is further afield. Although I do think the question of scale, I don't think we should underestimate that taking on the whole of the town. But yes, okay, that's a good ask. Thank you,
And with
Andy.
regard to the extras, I think when we place the order, we, say if we buy this, will you throw in a hedge trimmer or something? I think we do a bit of.
I'm going to get you on the negotiating team.
Yeah, we
Sure.
buy the demo model or something, like you do with a car. But we will look at that for best quality. Any more? Okay, in that case, we'll take the recommendations, we'll take them all together. Does anyone want to propose that? Nick will propose that. Ben will second it. Please vote.
Lovely, that's unanimous.
Unanimous again, thank you. Thanks, Rob. I know the work you put in that. So, thanks a lot.
Try it, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, that's fine. Well, I'm just going to start this off. Yeah, and then...
Okay, agenda item 5, marketing and communications. This falls to Rachel.
Yes, we ready? Okay, so as agreed last time we were at Oversight, discussions and decisions regarding events will all now be brought here. Events and meetings are a very effective way to engage with the town, as we just heard from Tom. We don't deliver them in a vacuum. We establish the objectives first, obviously, and ensuring that informs our choices, how we organise, how we promote events, and how we gauge the success afterwards. You'll have noticed that we broadly work with community partners almost always to ensure a greater number of events overall, to offer a diverse range of activities and pool resources by lending our support, promoting and helping others to organise theirs. We also provide spaces and support other town events, collaborate and just generally try and support the visitor economy. The whole idea around this is to ensure that we're fostering community cohesion, bringing vibrancy and prosperity into the town. As ever, I normally stand here and talk about the events that we're going to do that are coming up, but obviously mostly it's not me delivering them. So we're lucky that we've got Lucy here today, and she's just going to talk us through the first ones that you should know about and that are on this year's work programme, and then we'll move on to look at what we're going to be doing next year.
So the first event after
There we go. So the first event we got after a quiet start to the year is the Donate IT Tech Amnesty, which ticks loads of boxes, I would say, for what the council does. So it's obviously very obvious part of our green credentials is really good for us to be associated with it. It runs itself, I would say. It's very low maintenance from our point of view, and it gets more press attention than any other event. Like even though it's something we repeat and it never changes, you send out the same press release. And, I slug away all year at this, and you get 4 press requests back. Simon's on the radio all the time. Loads of people come down to see it. And last year it got 500 devices in the January one, and the June one I think was about 300. It does really well, and it's more than just recycling the devices. It's a way, if your device is defunct but you don't want to take it to the tip, it's securely wiped of all data. And they do amazing things. Like the one Simon always talks about, the founder, is a child who was a small child with diabetes, and his parent was having to prick his finger multiple times a day. The kid didn't understand why, and they donated a smartphone to this family that now communicates with the hospital in Bristol, tops up the kid's insulin while he sleeps. So it's a lot more than recycling. It's a lot more than just, obviously it's important to connect people affected by digital exclusion, but it's a really great, quite high profile event for us, and it's really easy. The week after, we've got the wassail. So if I was a councillor, I'd have to declare a pre-existing an interest in wassailing. I love wassailing. So that's a perfect example of how we're utilising the creativity and talent of community groups with our logistical ability and our gazebos and things. So there's the wassail performance is created by the wassail group. The orchard at Waylands was created by people who are really interested in doing the event, but they don't have the capacity. So we come together, we do the nuts and bolts, they do the pretty bit, and we all drink some cider. The next one after that is the International Women's Day, which we do a bit differently every year, so taking part of the national event. This year's theme is Accelerate Action, so Fiona is going to be facilitating an event on the 8th of March, probably at the football club, where we're bringing community groups together. So it'll be another example of Frome Town Council acting as a conduit and bringing people together and starting conversations. After the wassail, it's actually before that, so we're giving away some trees at the wassail. So some of the activities we didn't manage to do at Apple Day, because if you remember, Apple Day was cancelled due to bad weather. So none of those were wasted. We are bringing lots of those to the wassail. So we're making willow bird feeders and we're giving trees away. And we're doing a second after-school tree giveaway on the 10th of February for anyone who can't make the wassail. Window Wonderland is coming up again, so we take part in that as a supporter and using our considerable social media voice to amplify their publicity. We also take part in the town hall, which is celebrating the beautiful building, and it's a really nice team building thing. I always enjoy doing it. Last year, Paul's pants fell down, as I remember, but this year I think it's flowers and bees. So. After that is the Kindness Festival, which again is something we take part in with our own events, but also we just lend them a lot of noise from our channels. And we are doing our own 3 events. So we're doing some banner making events, like nominating your heroes in Frome. We're doing the Great Big Spring Clean, which you'll see Mark doing. Oh, he's there. Perfect timing with his found object. And last year we had 100 volunteers and collected 30 bags of rubbish, cleaned loads of graffiti. I was amazed. It was my first one. I didn't expect to have such a huge turnout, and people really loved it. And after that is Frome Busks, which I would say is a bit like the Donate IT in how much of the legwork is done by the school. Frome College do everything, and they provide obviously the beautiful music. The teacher Josh is amazing. So that is a perfect example of the collaborative working that we do. So that's this financial year. I'll pass over to Rachel.
Lovely, thank you. So then we move on to the proposed events for next year. And the first thing that I've got to note, it's not the most exciting thing ever, but we start off with the street closures. So this is where we gather everything together, all the neighbourhood networks, the street parties, and we get them all together because of the way that Somerset have changed how they do street parties. There would otherwise be a £600 cost to each application. However, they've streamlined the process. If we do the paperwork checking and get it all in line, we can put a number of street party and event road closures into one group. Each time we do it, it costs £600. This year we are going to have to do 2 applications anyway. I'll say a bit more about the second one later, but we hope to get the first batch in by mid-March. So that's what we're aiming for. That gives us plenty of time to secure all the dates, the paperwork, and just make sure it's always there. It's not very exciting, but it's very, very important, and a way that we can spend a little bit of money to save our community groups and networks a lot of money. So that takes me to our first new for this year list, and that is the Cobble Wobble. The news is the Cobble Wobble is back. This is the Cobble Wobble as Andrew, with Andrew Denham looking after it, over it, directing it. The only ask from us is to do the road closure. And the cost of that will be in the street parties road closure. So that seems quite reasonable. They haven't asked for anything else, just to be clear. So the expectation is that it will be chasing the paperwork, most of which I've got. The only thing I haven't got for that is the insurance certificate. So
yeah, so that was what I was going to ask. Who does the insurance? Who does the risk analysis, all that sort of stuff?
So the liability sits with the streets that it's in, or the, with the group who sends it to us, the liability stays with them. We make sure that everything is aligned to Somerset so that when it goes in, they're expecting there not to be any problems. They do, however, still do their fine tooth combing. So it's just a way of, I guess, streamlining the paperwork for them. We're triaging it. In a
Yeah,
sense.
I'm just aware of the conversations we had with the police about like the night and the thought of how you manage a crowd down Catherine Hill through a cobble wobble. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, the liability it stays with the event, and it's really important that they have their own procedures in place. That's true of all street party closures. They're really hands off in that really we're just doing the paperwork and supporting them that way. Okay. And I don't know how you want to do this, but we'll just talk through them as we go. If that suits everyone, that's fine. Great Big Green Week. This can be an enormous beast. Last time, I think we had something like 48 different events, but mostly that's us collecting together events that other people are running, Sustainable Froome, all across the whole wealth of community groups, input into that. We have 3 things that we are likely to be shaping up to be events that we look after, so therefore would be under our control and under our risk. And that's the River Festival, and that would be in conjunction with Froome Families for the Future, a Green Skills Day that Green and Healthy hope to hold, and we'll support them with that. And then the Great Big Green Meetup, which traditionally we've done in the park, and that has been very successful and well attended, and as a celebration of the entire festival. It is quite a feat collecting everything together, but as with everything, the more we do it, the more streamlined it becomes. Has anybody got any questions?
I just say that there has been definitely lots of conversations around how we can do things differently this year and shake it up a little bit and sort of think, do something a bit different. So hopefully that will sort of like come through as well. But there's been lots of conversations about that.
Yes, so
I know there's been a lot of work going into this, Rachel. Just echoing on from that, and a bit around the street road closures and the neighbourhood networks. I know that certainly in Keyford, a couple of neighbourhood networks have said they want to have a street party this year. If they have the date, can we add them to your? They don't have to be in the town centre or anything like that.
No, they don't have to be in the town.
Fantastic,
Just
that'd be
in
great.
the town boundary within our. Absolutely. We are encouraging all neighbourhoods to get their street parties in. And in fact, there is a bit of a plea tonight because Nikki said she's only had 3 so far, which is quite unusual.
Yeah, we did push it out through the Neighbourhood Network's newsletter as well to all those groups to say, here's an offer, take it up.
Yes. Good. So this takes us to Refugee Week. We're expecting to do a Refugee Week event, but as yet that's to be confirmed. I think you could say we've learnt from last year that it's too hard to do a lot of events in Refugee Week right on the back of Great Big Green Week. So this year we're just going to concentrate on one and make it really count. Froome Festival, that's made this list because we do spend quite a lot of time listing and amplifying. But the reason it's particularly made it this year is they've asked for a little bit of support around the food feast. They've taken it in-house traditionally. Other people have looked after it for them. So they just want a little bit of support around health and safety, what that looks like, how they might hone their procedures. The 4th of August, we've got a placeholder here because it's Play Day. We know we want to do something. I'm looking at Nikki, and as yet, it's just undefined. Obviously, it's not just us delivering all of these. It's across teams. So similarly, we've got an event as yet undefined for the resilience event. Walking Festival, that is a returner, but that's coming back in a different fashion. Walkers Are Welcome have very much taken on the organisation. We are now just responsible for putting the brochure together and the comms around that. So we no longer have responsibility for the event itself, which feels like a good step forward. So then this brings us to the Catherine Hill climb. I don't know whether you wanted to say something about this.
Yeah, thanks very much. I kind of like to try and think about the Frome Town Centre as a bit like a stadium in terms of we're trying to get people to bring events to the stadium, to our stadium, that will bring visitors in, get people to come in and spend money in our shops and local independent businesses. This has been a kind of evolving thing over 3 years, this event. It started off as a version of the Cobble Wobble that got into some problems with naming, so the team decided to rename it as a Catherine Hill Race. And to broaden the appeal and accessibility, and in line with our desire to have a healthier town, it's going to be a run up Catherine Hill with various age groups and fancy dress if people want, and then a ride up Catherine Hill. Just to allay Andy's fears, it's always up the hill rather than down, so it's not quite so hazardous. And this is an example of an event that has been put together by, or led by Pronto, who's our independent bike shop, with other local businesses. They are not doing it for any profit. They're doing it, well, they want to make a profit, but the idea is to donate the profit to the cycling charity for Frome's Missing Links. And I think it's a really good example of something where we can help sort of seed fund the event. They won't be asking for any money until they've raised the money to actually fund it, which is £20,000 from local businesses. And a member of the group now is a member of Frome's Missing Links. And I think it's a really good example of something that will hopefully tie in the town centre with an active, interesting event that will appeal to a broad range of people and shows local businesses what they can do with the support of the town centre and the town council. Thanks.
Thank you for that. So then on my list, that brings me to the winter events that we know that we need to support. One of those is the Remembrance Day Parade. Just to remind you that we now take responsibility for that in terms of the risk and the insurance, because Royal British Legion no longer support the health and safety for any of their events, and Christmas lights switch on. Now, there are two things to say to that. One of the first one is, I'm really sorry, the report number that went out as 16,500. That is not correct. It is still the 13,500. So my apologies there. But there is going to be this year more time that we need to put into the security and the safety aspects around there. The police have flagged that there are changes that we are going to need to make in order to have their support. And of course, we do need their support. We'll be working with them to make sure that we come up with a solution. But it was felt that, you know, it's a victim of its own success. So we will be working quite closely with the Safety Advisory Group in order to bring something forward that's safe and still fun and celebratory. So that brings us to the end of those events. I have got a few more things to say, but okay.
Hang on.
Well, I just want to say that I'm in, so this is not a definitive list. We are in conversations all of the time. One of the things that is missing from this list, obviously, and I think I wrote a little bit in the report, was about the drones. We're keen to have that, and in fact, that budget was still in the budget, because when we came to write the list, it was still on the table. They have decided that they need to consolidate their business model this year. We hope that next year they'll be able to be back and delivering us in a community way. So that is really good. The other things that we are sort of, there are all the other events which we'll, you know, the retrofit activities, the Let's Talk, the Wild Bunch meetings, the drop-ins, the road shows, all of those things. We're not talking about them, we're just using those as examples of our our jobbing comms, if you like. So do give me a steer if you want to hear more about that. And I think, oh yeah, just to say that a number of other groups need a little bit more additional support. Valentine lamp lighting, because Reg is retiring, the group is constituting, so we're just doing a little bit of work around that to hold and support that, whilst obviously not catching the Valentine lamp or the liabilities associated with it. Froome Pride, their organiser, is also leaving, so we're just holding that a little bit, saving the space and helping the conversations, so that hopefully they will then be able to take that forward themselves. As I already said about the food feast, and then we've got Photo Froome, they're delivering for the first time things in the parks and open spaces, so there's obviously quite a bit of work to be done around that. The list isn't particularly exciting so far, we do recognise that. In part that's because we are expecting our focus likely to be finding a proper solution for the markets. Not that we want to prejudge anything, and obviously that's not a discussion for now, but you know, we want to be working with partners there to build and improve them. So there remains quite a bit of flexibility in the calendar and about £15,000 in the budget, not that doesn't have anything allocated to it just now. Do we want to have a discussion?
Steve, you got some questions, and then Fiona, and then Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Firstly, thanks very much for putting the times and staff house. That's really useful, I think, and yeah, very, very good. The only thing I want to just raise is the Remembrance Day parade. You said we were taking on the liabilities and stuff like that. I mean, last couple of years I've been in it, I mean, some of the poor youngsters there's been a steady stream of them keeling over halfway through the service, which is really quite unpleasant for a lot of people who are standing close to them and stuff like that. Can we please look, try and look after them a bit? I mean, I know they have to stand to attention and all that, but there has to be a way that they can at least have a break and have a glass of water. Otherwise, it's like a domino effect. It really is.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Nobody wants to see that, and it really spoiled. It really enormously impacted. Just for those of you who weren't aware, we did in fact have 16 fainters last year. It was unseasonably warm. They were held for quite a long time, standing, and they aren't taught how to stand anymore, and they don't do it in assemblies or really in any situation. So quite a lot of work will be done. We did a really thorough wash up. We've already got something in post, so we will endeavour to make that look a much more improved experience for everyone.
So yeah, two observations. So the first one, I guess, is sort of what I've said to you and I've said to council as well, is that I think you're right, looking at it, it does feel like it's a lot of the sort of the same sort of stuff other than the bike festival, which is great to see. So I have wondered, and obviously it depends on your capacity, but whether if we did want to go out with sort of an expression of interest with a very tight criteria, which is something around like new, exciting, innovative events that would bring new people into the town centre and tie in with our town centre sort of area of work. I don't know if that's of interest to people, but I think it would be, I'm very aware that sometimes we sort of get and we do the same events every year, and I think it would be really good to kind of get a bit of fresh blood in there, but that is dependent on the markets and your capacity, so maybe there's a timing thing, I don't know.
I mean, in an ideal world, it would work
yeah.
in a way that, you give somebody the money and
they could run away with it. I mean, maybe if your capacity is going to be limited this year, but we've got that pot of money, maybe that's the way of doing it, that we could seed fund some events and see what ideas people have, because I'm sure there's some good ones around.
A number of ideas that have sort of come to us but haven't actually come to us properly, that we've had discussions about, but they haven't been. So a jazz festival, all of those things bring people in and pack the Airbnbs to the gunnels and support our nighttime economy. Frost Fair, returning to Frost Fair. I think one that was trialled a couple of years ago by the cheese and grain. Definitely, there's capacity there to improve or reimagine it. So there are quite a lot of.
I think just sort of, I guess, sort of going out with an expression of interest, I just feel could be a good way of kind of getting a sense of what's out there and coming back. And then the other thing is, you sort of said the small events. That's actually what sort of makes me feel sort of, 'cause I know how much they all add up. And I think sometimes it's the small events that sort of come from the other projects, particularly other things, and also from your team as well, that do add up to a lot of staff time. And actually, do we have a sort of a plan for sort of, because obviously this is sort of, there are going to be other ideas that come through and events that are really great and we'll want to do, but then how do we manage that so it's also not just sort of up to you and your team then getting overloaded, or ideas coming that maybe aren't quite right? Sometimes I think, we do a lot of sort of smaller events, and actually I think the bigger events are actually, I would rather we put more energy into fewer events personally.
Yeah.
But that's
it's quite interesting because ideas come all the time from within the team. Also, just today we've had discussions around an event around renewables and maybe twin events, one for businesses and one for homeowners.
Grow and spiral, and you end up with a load of
and there is something around cutting your cloth according to your.
If I can just jump in on that. My sense is that actually to have 15 grand floating in the budget at this point is a very safe approach. And I'd be very wary of actually going out and setting the expectation that we're going to be picking up anything more when we've got so many balls up in the air at the moment. The specific question I did want to ask, though, was I got involved last year in a relatively non-athletic capacity with the half marathon, and I didn't hear you mention that.
No,
is that going ahead this year, do you know, and is there any staff involvement in it other than running?
So if, can you click onto the...
As somebody who actually ran it,
Yeah.
I only finished a couple of weeks ago.
If you click onto the next...
That is now completely an independent event managed by a private company.
Is, but we do check out all their paperwork. We book them into the park and open spaces. We talk to we certainly have those conversations. So we've got a different spreadsheet that kind of keeps track of all the different things that just the conversations that we have, the things that we need to keep talking about, the discover freedom element of keeping track of everything. So
It's scheduled for the 17th of August this year.
yeah, it is on
Got time to get ready.
tiny writing.
Okay. Not sure what I'm talking about here. So some people might say that that's not uncommon. It's a very impressive list, and thanks very much. I wonder if there's any way of tying it all together. You know how we've talked about town centres changing and being exciting and interesting and sexy, and people come for the variety. I wonder if there's any way of trying to pull all of that together and calling ourselves X or Y, or using that as a background for things that we do. So some places call themselves the book town or the food town. I'm not saying we should necessarily go that far, but there's something that we could sell this place on as a whole rather than just as parts. So I haven't got any suggestions, so you might just want to reflect on it during the next 12 months.
I really will, but I know that Peter is quite keen, who's in the background somewhere, just on looking over his shoulder. I know that he's really quite keen on being the market town. So, I like that.
Also, opportunity with Discover Froome launch of the website in launching the Discover Froome website. Hopefully, April, May. There's something we could do around that and tie that in with what you're saying, Mel, as well.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
We've got a full agenda, so just quickly, just to echo again, it's really easy from a slightly removed thing to underestimate how much staff time goes into things like this. So I echo your comment about it's really helpful to understand that a bit better. And the issue around how we support events. I mean, some of the events that take place in the town without us are really successful. like the comedy
Definitely.
crawl and stuff like that. That's brilliant. But there are others that maybe, as you know, we're trying to bring out and find a way to support them without spending too much staff time dealing with it. So it's really great. Thank you very much, Rachel. Thanks.
Thank you. And if no one else has got any comments, I've just got a little additional bit to add about Discover Froome, because obviously a very important element of promoting events and supporting other people, such as the comedy, one of the ways we can support that is by amplifying their offer. So I just wanted to update everybody. A while ago, we applied for a Rural England Prosperity Fund grant. The application was worth 42,000. We're delighted to say that we were successful, but the projects needed to be oven ready to be delivered by mid-March. So work has now begun in August. This includes the website. I'm very happy to say we're beginning to see the first designs in it, the first iteration, and that is very exciting. I'm hoping the events element will really mark a sort of shift change in the experience of using Discover Froome, so hopefully that will all be what it is. That budget was agreed and is leveraged as match funding for the grant to cover a number of additional items, which include planters, benches, a bin store, and a mural alongside the river facing into the car park. I'm mentioning this now because of the timing. It all needs to be delivered very quickly. So I ask that it be minuted and that we'll press ahead to deliver by the mid-March deadline and keep councillors informed. Thank you.
Anything more for Rachel or Lucy? No, thank you. So we have 3 recommendations. I'll take them together. Note these events, agree the programme of events, and agree that marketing and communications team to continue to work with event organisers to support new events into the town centre as they arise. Anne is proposing that. Fiona is seconding. Vote.
Lovely, thank you.
Unanimous, thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Lucy. We now move to the business case for the town centre coordinator. And I think Peter's going to present this from a remote location. We're going to Eurovision mode now.
I hope you can hear me, Mark. Am I coming through?
Yeah, you're fine, Peter.
Great. And good evening, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be with you this evening, but hopefully I can do this justice remotely. As far as this particular topic is concerned, obviously councillors will be aware that there was agreement in principle to establish a post at the last council meeting and also to establish a budget. And all of that, of course, was in line with the priorities that councillors agreed and that are set out in the council plan. It's obviously for this committee to decide whether to proceed with the recruitment. So I'll talk a little about that. The need for a dedicated officer to respond not just to the issues, but also to the opportunities within the town centre has been debated and documented at many council meetings over the last couple of years. And hopefully I've set the detail out in the report, but I'll highlight a few things as we go through. The proposal before you tonight is to recruit a town centre coordinator. And we've deliberately chosen the word coordinator because we feel that this particular post offers an opportunity for us to generate the capacity that I think that we need to coordinate things within the town centre, something that we have talked about for a long time, but unfortunately have not had the ability to do. And there are some, obviously the job description is one that needs to be developed, but there are some main responsibilities that we would like this coordinator to be involved with. The first one is around engaging town centre stakeholders, be they local businesses or other representatives within the community. They might also be agencies that we work with, Somerset Council, the police, other organisations that have an interest in the town centre. And that engagement has a purpose, we feel, which is to develop an action plan that addresses the appearance and vibrancy of the town centre and begins to tackle some of those issues that we have debated before. But also pick up on some of the opportunities too. And I would include amongst those opportunities the trend towards pop-up shops within town centres. There are vacant properties within Frome that could be used by those who have an interest in pop-up shops, and certainly the demand is growing for that. I'm meeting with a group in a few days' time who would like to do that kind of thing. But at the moment, of course, have limited capacity. Hopefully, this town centre coordinator, if you choose to recruit them, would have the capacity to be able to take that kind of initiative forward. Rachel mentioned earlier the potential to develop the markets further. So that's another opportunity which this post holder could investigate. We know that there is a plan to bring a banking hub into the centre of Frome. Well, we know that there are going to be spin-off benefits for the town centre and for the wider town, which this post holder could focus on. The idea of developing a more vibrant cultural destination. I mean, clearly there are already a lot of events taking place within the town centre and the wider town. But there may be other opportunities that could be nurtured. And things like making better use of community spaces within the town centre, such as the library. And one other thing that has been investigated in the past, but is deserving of looking at in more detail in the future, is the opportunity to establish a business improvement district, whereby local businesses have the opportunity to take a lead in doing things that will benefit not only the business community, but also the wider community, and generate more footfall, more trade within the town centre. So all of these things, this post holder could potentially begin to look at more closely and begin to exploit those opportunities. One other issue that's been highlighted in the report, and we've discussed before, is the fragmentation of commercial waste collection arrangements within the town centre, which means that in many places it's quite unsightly. You know, lots of wheelie bins on street corners, which are quite unsightly, and there are lots of different arrangements for collecting commercial waste, because of course there are many different contracts in operation. But we think there's an opportunity with this post holder to begin to address that fragmentation, work with businesses that have those arrangements with commercial waste collection providers, and see if there could be better coordination. And another thing which the town centre lacks are dedicated recycling facilities. Working with the environment manager and Rob and his team, this post holder could begin to explore the potential to introduce new recycling facilities within the town centre. So that hopefully gives you a flavour of some of the things that this post holder might begin to address. And I think that the benefits have been very clearly set out in the report. So through this recruitment, we could hopefully secure better engagement of town centre stakeholders, better coordination of town centre initiatives, There's an opportunity for us to work closely with the environment team to improve the appearance of the town centre and ultimately to increase footfall and economic activity and improve the perception of Frome and increase economic activity across the town, which is a clear priority within the council plan and within the work programme. So the proposal is to recruit this town centre coordinator. The work programme refers to a half-time officer. Tonight, I'm suggesting that with the budget agreed, we should go for a 3-day contract, which would obviously enable more to be done. Now, that does come at a cost, but the budget allows for that 3-day contract, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. As you know, all new positions within the council require job evaluations. So if you agree to this recruitment tonight, we would have to go through that exercise. But the proposal is that subject to job evaluation, we recruit someone on a salary range which is commensurate with that of our project officers within the town council. So specifically, and again, this is subject to job evaluation, the salary level that is recommended is SCP 21 to 24, with a starting salary at the bottom of the range at SCP 21. Now, what that actually means in financial terms is on the basis of starting someone at that lower level at SCP 21 for 3 days a week, the annual cost, including on costs, would work out at 27k. And that would leave out of the 33k that was agreed in the budget for 25-26, 5k to cover essential equipment and resources. The other point that I wanted to pick up on here was around whether we should go for a fixed term contract or a permanent contract. A fixed term contract would enable the next administration, if assuming it's say 3 years, to evaluate the success of this post and decide whether to continue. Of course, it could be shorter than that. But my view on this is that a permanent contract is more likely to improve the prospects of a successful recruitment exercise. So that very much is the recommendation in this report. So I'm going to stop talking now. I'm sure you've got lots of questions, and I'd be very happy to answer those.
Right, questions for Peter on this? Mel?
I did help Peter to put this report together, and I think we missed a few elements, Peter. One, maybe we did it on purpose. One, I think I called irritant. I actually want somebody who's going to go around this town and say to various people, and it might include some of the shop owners in that, as well as other bodies. Why is this being allowed to happen? Why aren't we doing something about that? And I also want somebody who actually loves the town centre, who can then say, hang on a second, I'm sure those cobbles have not been fixed. I'm going to find somebody to make that happen. And so it's actually somebody who's really concerned on a day-to-day basis with what it looks like, what's happening, who's doing what. And there was a classic one in the last couple of days where Nick's had to pick out a whole lot of cans, where we were still having the argument of, oh, this is Somerset's job, this is the town council's job. which I thought we would manage to get over eventually. So what we want is a paid nick, basically. Not too many of them, but but somebody who is that bothered, and who will make things happen. And I genuinely think that we've underplayed both the time that this will take, but I'm happy to start off where we are. And also, I'm not sure we'll get the kind of quality of person that we're looking for the salary that we're putting forward. But let's get going while we can, because again, this is something that's been knocking around for quite a long time. We did have a town centre manager very early on. It didn't quite work out in the way that we wanted, but let's make sure that we take this opportunity now. It's there, it's on the table, and tonight you can make a difference.
Yeah, just to say, from my perspective, I think the idea of making it a permanent position rather than a fixed term contract absolutely makes sense in the context of the sort of person we want for this job. Needs to be somebody who's invested in the town centre long term.
I completely get what you're saying, Matt, about it's on the table, like, let us go for it, because it is something that has been talked about for a long time. But I also really agree with what you said. I think that salary is too low, and the time as well. And I feel a bit that I completely agree we need more resource in this area. And I think, and I really like a lot of what's here, but it feels a bit sort of not quite thought out. We've said in the strategy we're going to do a review of the staff structure. And I think we need to do that first to really get an idea of where the gaps are, where the skill gaps are. And then we'll have a really clear idea of who we need to hire. And I just feel like it all feels a bit muddled, because you're talking about on a very, like, you know, fixing cobbles and everything, but there's also stuff in here around coordinating businesses. And I think there's also the broader economic development of the town. That is our long-term aim. We've got a short-term priority for the town centre, but our long-term aim is around economic development. And it feels like we're hiring a permanent position for a short-term priority. And I think, and I've said this before, I think, you know, we took a lot of time thinking about when Nikki left, about turning the resilience manager into a climate action lead. A lot of what you're saying here feels like that the equivalent, and I think it would probably need to be at that salary level. And you know, I personally think that we should be doing more like economic development lead that can then do some of that stuff, but it's 5 days a week as well. I think actually we could create a more meaty post if we just take a bit more time to think about it and do that review of the staff structure. Because I think some things that Peter said and that's been said before are actually things, you know, like the markets, for instance, sit with you. There's stuff in Matt's work programme at the waste. If we actually clarify where it's all going, we might be able to find something a bit like, yeah, a stronger role in it. But I also recognise that Peter also really needs support, and that this is a resource. It just feels to me a little bit thought out at the moment where it's going to sit.
It's quite a challenge. Sorry, Peter, did you want to come in first?
No, I just wondered if you wanted me to comment on that at all.
Yeah, go on, Peter.
Okay, I mean, what I would like to say is that, of course, you already have an economic development lead in myself, but what I lack at the moment is the support that's needed in order to, you know, to make progress. And my feeling is that this particular individual certainly would provide some very useful capacity when it comes to that role within the, you know, within the town centre, and to a large extent the focus of that individual will be clarified at a point where we're able to pull together the job description, but also develop the action plan. That then I think the everything that we really want from this post holder will come into sharp focus. I mean, the other point, hopefully, which is obvious, is that you know, if the desire of councillors tonight is to go for either someone who is more full time or plays a more strategic role, if you like, then clearly that would have to go back to council to get a larger budget agreed. So I think we need to bear in mind that there will be a hiatus after this meeting whilst that's looked at. But ultimately, of course, it's down to councillors, around the table tonight to decide whether this is being pitched at the right level, for the job that needs to be done. That's all I wanted to say, really.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I'm not naturally patient. I kind of like to sort of make things move on as fast as we can. So I'd be loath to take this out and then have a 3-month review and another 3-month sort of decision process. And the role I see is a kind of combination of strategic and tactical, because we have in the town people who can fix stuff that needs fixing, or we have organisations who are paid to fix them. So having someone who does what between us, Mel, Rob, Mike, myself, to say, like the cans this morning or some damp running from a planter, there are people who can come and do that. So it's a question of bringing them together on a regular basis, saying, or being able to just ring them up. And part of the challenge, of course, is some of the things I would like to see happen. I know others, for instance, when people take over a shop and don't bother to put the shop name on the front, it just looks like a pop-up, those kind of things where we don't really have the authority to tell anyone to do that. It's a kind of process of negotiation influencing, which I've failed with 3 shops on Catherine Hill so far.
You mean somebody who can't spell Badcocks?
Yeah, there's an element of that, Andy. Yeah, but I get your point, Fiona, about the going forward what we need. But I think if some of Peter's time is freed up from where he is called in to deal with stuff that would fall to this role, and maybe if the role evolves, we could then look at maybe expanding in the future. But I'd be really loath to take this out and start all over again. And I know you were slightly impatient, waiting for yours to come through. Okay, enough from me, I think.
I'm guessing the town centre group are fully behind this. Yeah. I mean, my view is if we've set up these groups to look at various areas, and the town centre group have looked at this. If the town centre group feel this is the way they want to go forward, then let's go forward.
I think the other thing actually Peter alluded to is that there's barely 2 years left of this administration. If we want to be seen to be an administration that made an impact in the town centre, then we can't wait for another review of scope of other posts, etc. We need to move forward.
Permanent post as well, not a fixed contract.
Yeah, and that is in the current recommendation. So can we move on to a vote on this? If anybody wants to amend this, then it would have to be another resolution. It'd have to be an amendment to the recommendations. But at the moment, the recommendation is before us. So approve the recruitment, and that'll be job evaluated. Laura, the executive assistant, will undertake the job evaluation, determine the final salary, and delegate to Peter to draft the job description and to recruit the post as soon as possible. And I think Peter's heard some ideas tonight which would probably influence the job description. And so if we're happy to vote on those, I'd need someone to propose it. That can be Steve, and seconded by Anne. And we can all vote on that. Sorry?
It says it in the recommendation.
First line. Are you abstaining?
I'm abstaining, just I think we should do the
Fair enough, and Fiona abstains. Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Pleasure.
Back to Rachel for a quick trip around the town hall.
Yes, so Town Hall, a very quick trip. Indeed, I was asked to rag rate it, and we are all green and on track. Just 2 things to note. Everything's on track, and we're where we would expect to be. Just we've got another quarter to deliver the end bit. The current maintenance programme is in line with everything, so we're all geared up. Now we've had the budget approved, we can get on and look at the work that we discussed in September's oversight. I just would like to flag, though, you will have seen, all of you as you were coming in, that there is quite a dramatic leak at the back. This is, I'm assured, remedial and is something to do with the porch hood. Tony's coming to fix it on Friday. So hopefully that door will be back in action soon and is not a result of delaying on the larger works. Any questions about that?
Questions for Rachel? There's another vote? Yes, of course, Andy.
Just very quickly, are you making any progress in getting me an analogue clock to go behind reception?
No, there is a digital one, but there isn't an analogue one, only because we can't find exactly the right thing. Yes, so I'm sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. That was just to note that agenda item. The next one is a decision. Is Sarah with us? We're back into Eurovision. Sarah's speaking from miles away. Evening, Sarah. Thanks for...
Evening. Sorry, I'm not there in person. Yeah, so the paper was distributed. We are progressing well at 3/4 of the way through the year. We do have another 3 months to go. We are still forecasting, as we did at January's council, a surplus of around 94,000. That may well change in the next 3 months, and hopefully the surplus will go up slightly. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions on any part of the very extensive report? Now we have to look at everything over £100. It goes on for pages. No? Everybody happy with that? Okay.
No, but I just don't like passing on and thank you for that answering the question.
Sorry, Fiona, I can't
Ask
hear
a
you.
question.
I don't have a question to ask.
You don't have a question? Okay. We have the recommendation in front of us to approve the income and expenditure, approve the balance sheet, and approve the payments over £100. Anne is proposing that. Ben will second. Vote.
That's unanimous.
Unanimous again, thank you. The next one is about the internal auditor. This is shown as Hannah Watts, but who is going to present that one? Becca's going to do this one. Thank you, Becca.
Hold on, there we go.
You are.
Do you want me to come up or are you happy for me to stay here? Okay, as Hannah can't be here to present it this evening, I'm going to be covering the agenda item. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to read the report on the internal audit, our internal auditor, Kevin Rose, our statement of internal control and disposal of assets. I'll try my best to answer any questions, but does anyone have any questions regarding this?
So we're happy that we're passing audit and Mr. Rose is...
That he's for, seems very helpful actually, which is good. Well, he's not helpful. Let me rephrase.
Not unhelpful.
He's thorough. That's the one. Thank you. Thorough.
Sarah, are we happy with...
Yes, we are very happy. He is challenging, but Hannah particularly is enjoying the challenges.
She is.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Becca, question from Fiona.
Fiona, can you use the mic?
No, it's not working. Use one of your other ones.
There we go. There are quite a lot of recommendations in his report. Is the idea that we follow all of the recommendations? Or
I think in the last column there will be whether we've just noted it or whether we're looking into it. But yes, we would endeavour to apply all his recommendations unless we've got a strong challenge to it.
okay. And
For
then
example,
comments.
the list of £100
there'll be
payments. Sorry, Fiona, the list of payments over £100, we have challenged him, and that's ongoing work with the ICO. If we can get the ICO to agree that we don't have to do the payments over 100, we can go back to payments over 500.
Okay, and then all the recommendations where it says comments, that's basically whether we're doing his recommendation or not, or what the next step is.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Brilliant.
Okay. Are there any more questions?
Yes, Steve.
Sorry, Sarah. Has it always been 100 that we have to get? That it
No.
goes sorted?
It used to be
It
500.
used to be 500, didn't it? Why
Yep.
did it change? Any reason?
Well, it was Kevin who noticed that it's only principal authorities who are able to publish payments only over 500. All other lower authorities have to do over 100. He said there are a number of councils who are publishing their entire general ledger. We've just produced a report that will produce over £100.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay, any more? Thank you, Becca. Thank you, Sarah. So we have those 5 recommendations there. I don't need to read them out. You can all read them. Andy will propose that. Nick will second it. Vote. Thank you. Thank you, Becca. Thank you, Sarah. Those have been passed.
Thank you.
Where are we now?
Safeguarding.
Hello.
Laura.
I would have given it my usual any questions. However, Nikki just reminded me that there was a little point in the report that said about the offer that we give, the free training offer that we give to community groups. And Nikki and her team are looking into that. We might not offer it in the way that we did last year. It is under consideration. So just it's still a watch this space and refer to Nikki if there are any questions about that one. But otherwise, any questions?
Right, so there's the recommendation to update chapter 21. Nick Dove's proposing and is seconding. Unanimous, thank you. Laura's now going to update the bullying and harassment policy.
Any questions?
Same question as I always say whenever any of these things come up is it's that relationship between councillors and staff. It's all sort of geared at staff and then councillors sort of pop up in it occasionally. And it just feels like where do we sit in this? For instance, the bit about councillors, I think just sort of talks about just our relationship to the staff, but then obviously councillors could bully each other. So how do we, I don't know, it's always awkward and I know that it's not easy, but I guess I just sort of picked up on it again, that there doesn't seem to be much protection in here for.
I mean, it gets tricky with councillors obviously because you as a council are the employer, so we're coming at this sort of from an HR perspective. So obviously, as an employer, it's much easier for us to implement policies and procedures and potentially, could put in sort of sanctions and disciplinaries. We don't really have that authority over you as councillors. So it's not to say that we wouldn't take any allegations of bullying or harassment seriously, but there might need to be a slightly different way of dealing with those situations. Also, as Sarah's just pointed out, there is the Councillors' Code of Conduct as well, which very much sets out the sort of expectations around councillor behaviour and interactions with staff as well. So,
which I believe now are looking at the moment.
Oh, and NALCA are looking into as well. So, I mean, this policy very much comes from South West Councils, who are our HR advisors. So it is very much from a place of HR. However, I don't see why, the principles in it couldn't be applied across councillors, staff, volunteers, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it can be perfectly wide-ranging, but to point two, it goes into the staff handbook and councillors aren't staff.
No, so it's that tricky balance, and obviously, particularly, and I've made reference to it, around sexual harassment, particularly, there's now a bigger emphasis on the employer to take reasonable steps to prevent that from happening. Helpfully, they don't actually list what they consider reasonable. And what is, what we should be doing to do that. But this is just one of those additional ways that we can make sure that we're hitting those things that we need to and making sure that staff are protected. but by extension, I would say that's councillors as well.
I think it's really good to have all the not really good to have all the sexual harassment in there. That comes out the wrong way, but yeah, it's great to see sexual harassment treated like as seriously as it is and listed in that way.
It's tricky when we're dealing with ourselves as a councillor body. If we were members of any established parties, then they would have their own processes within place. If you remember, some years ago, I wrote a policy for if, which still stands as far as I know. So we would have to sort that out amongst ourselves. So are we going to approve the updated bullying and harassment policy, delegate the executive assistant to insert the policy, and also ask her to ensure the policy is shared with all staff and councillors? Nick, vote.
Lovely, thank you.
Unanimous, thank you. The risk register, that was going to be Hannah. Is that you now, Vicar?
Hi again. Again, covering for Hannah. So the risk register is an important part of governance, and there aren't many changes on the risk register, but they are important changes that are in there. And hopefully you've had a chance to read the report written by Hannah and Rob. Are there any questions on that one?
No? Okay, so will you vote to instruct me to sign the 24-25 risk register and approve the risk management strategy? Yes, propose. And what Mel's proposing. All right, Andy, of course, is proposing. Steve is seconding. Vote. Got to put your head above the parapet every now and again, Mel. And the final item was something that Paul inserted, knowing he wasn't going to be here. So these are basically a programme for this committee for the next year and into 26. So it's for us to note. There is the only thing that we realised, that Rachel and I realised when we went through this earlier, is Rachel's not mentioned in it. But as in the events, there are bits that Rachel gets involved in, marketing and comms, obviously, but I think we want some updates on events anyway, so we will make sure that's inserted into the programme as well, because we abolished the Events Advisory Group and this committee now takes that place, and so we need to keep an eye on what's going on to make sure it's efficient. Laura, use this.
I would just say that this is based on a sort of a list that Paul and I keep, and we are reviewing it all the time. So it's likely that this report would come back again, and it might change. It's probably likely going to update. It's also dependent on how we want to receive programme updates. There'll be odd things that come up. The other things are the policy updates that you so love. They obviously have timelines and things. So I think Paul's idea would be to bring this sort of report regularly, just so you get a sense of what's coming up and when, and then make sure Rachel's included.
Al has a question. Fiona has a question. Andy has a question.
We need to be aware that there'll have to be somewhere put in here, presumably around about May or July, the peer review, which will presumably come to this committee, and also following on from that, anything that we do in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. So just.
Fiona?
Yeah, it doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't feel particularly like thought through or like, it just, yeah, there's not really a lot in it. So I don't really know what we're meant to be voting on. I still feel that we haven't really got the remit of this committee right. And it all feels very muddled to me at the moment. There was a conversation last night around updates and work programs, etc. I think we need to sort it all out. And so I'm going to not vote for this.
just being picky, because the Oversight Committee is all about being picky. The agenda says item 13 is to note the upcoming items. What's on the screen is a decision, which implies there's a vote to be made.
Yeah, you're right. So, the idea of this was, I understand, and I haven't spoken to Paul, the idea said in train, because there were items like, sorry? Just note it. I thought it says a decision. I've been picked up on it.
Saying is, the agenda says it's just something to note. It's not something we should be voting on.
So the recommendation at the end of agenda 13, we're ignoring that, are we?
Wow.
The way I see it, these are just sort of items that will probably come up at the next meetings, but it's all subject to change anyway. So
that's right.
I can't really see where there's a decision to be made. It's just, this is what's likely to come up.
Yeah.
But if anything else comes up which is more important, it's all going to get bumped, isn't it?
Exactly. I think it was just a way of putting, staggering throughout the year, where people will turn up, when officers turn up, so not everybody turns up all the time, incurring toil and all the other things that we worry about. That so people know when they're going to come into meetings and over the next year.
So we can just note it rather than vote to decide it, can't we? Or can we vote to note it? Or note to vote it? I don't know. It's getting late, isn't it?
Well, I know, that's why I was trying to get on, but I got picked up. So, Peter, do we have a ruling on this from the clerk of the court?
If on the formal agenda, it was clear that councillors were being asked to note this, then I think that is what should happen. You know, rather than bring something new in terms of a decision on this particular topic. That would be my view, and I'm kind of sensing, based on the discussion around the room, that the consensus is that we note the upcoming plans for meetings.
Thanks, Peter.
So that would be my view on it.
Thank you, Peter. In that case, as chairman, I'll make a decision that we're going to note this. So, thank you. Thank you for everybody who's come tonight. Good to see 100% turnout. Thanks for all of you who joined us around the world. And I'll draw a line under this sorry affair, and we will.
Thanks, Mark. Nicely done.
We will re-meet on the 19th of March. Thank you. Good night.
Bye.